So, are you a top or a bottom? Now, I'm not talking about in the bedroom. That is a whole other topic for us to explore another time. What I'm talking about is what are your favorite ways to integrate change? How do you determine your access points for healing the brain, healing the nervous system, healing the body? So, I want to share with you again a little bit here from our wonderful trauma treatment toolbox. So, one of the things that I certainly run into all of the time, it certainly was my own personal journey as well, was this internal dialogue of, I can't change. Ugh, just feeling so stuck, feeling broken, feeling like there's just no way that things are going to get any better. And so, while it is a fair and understandable feeling, it's really helpful to understand the science of the brain so that you begin to really understand the ways in which you actually can change. So, the first concept that we have to really understand is neuroplasticity. So, I love this statement here that neuroplasticity is not only possible, it is inevitable. Okay, like let's take that in for a moment. Like, this is something that has to happen. Your brain, just by way of you continuing to live day to day to day to day, is being impacted and influenced by new data, new experiences, and so it is changing all of the time, actually. And so every experience, sensation, interaction with others or the environment changes the brain, even if it's just to reinforce pre-existing networks. Okay, so that's the thing we might want to start to get out of doing. We have approximately 86 billion neurons. Whoa, Nelly. Like, there's a lot going on up there. There's a lot of firing action. My favorite definition, well, it's not a favorite definition, it is the definition of neurons, is that they are electrically excitable cells. And I love that. Like, these neurons are just pinging around, having a good time. They're so excited. They want to get shit done. They want to connect, which is what creates those neuronal pathways. So each neuron is connecting to thousands of others. So these aren't just one-to-one connections. Think of every single one of these neuronal cells has a whole bunch of different pathways going out to other neurons. So the interconnectivity of the brain, oh, it's fascinating and beautiful, which also means that our capacity for the brain to change is also enormous. The purpose of healing, therapy, coaching is really to intentionally change your brain so that you can become healthier, you can become happier. What is really important to understand is that you want to make neuroplasticity work for you. And so we want to use different approaches. And so within the Beyond Surviving program, I love what's going to be called a top-down approach. So I love the entry point of really working with the brain first and thoughts. But what is so true is that we need to have a blend of modalities. We need some of those bottom-up strategies, which is where we're working with the body, somatics. And then I think there are other approaches too, which I'll talk about here in a moment. But let's first of all understand the difference between bottom-up approaches and top-down approaches to healing the brain. So a bottom-up technique works through the body to change the brain, especially the lower subcortical areas of the brain that are outside of our conscious awareness and conscious control. So bottom-up techniques can be utilized to deactivate the amygdala, that's your fear center, or to strengthen and regulate the insula, that's your site of interoception. While it may be possible to also alter higher cortical structures of the brain using bottom-up techniques, that's less common. So you're not necessarily working all the way up into like the prefrontal cortex and those parts of the brain when you're using these bottom-up techniques. So some examples: breathing exercises. Oh, yes, they're so important. Attunement awareness exercises, like things like you're doing a body scan to kind of notice where you're holding tension, where you're holding pain, what are the sensations that are happening for you in any given moment. Progressive relaxation techniques. Oh my goodness, if you go over to rachelgrantcoaching.com/resources/music, there are also meditations listed there, and there are a couple of these progressive muscle relaxation, techniques listed there. Yoga, exercise, tai chi, meditation. Okay, so when you're thinking about building your toolkit for healing, do make sure that you are building in some of these bottom up strategies that you can access. And you might even just start to notice like these are the kinds of tools that really resonate with you the most, and so you're going to prioritize getting those tools in your toolkit. Okay, top down approaches. In top-down techniques, the mind is engaged to change the brain. So the brain, especially the higher cortical areas, can be altered with thoughts. We can actively use our thinking to change our thinking, which I adore. I love this. So top-down techniques can be used to strengthen the prefrontal cortex, your thinking center, the cingulate, which is your emotional regulation center. And it's possible to alter those lower brain structures like the amygdala using these top-down methods, okay? But we need to have really good interventions that help us get us into the body first and get a little grounded before we start to use a top-down technique. If we try when our amygdala is activated to just go straight into doing something like thinking critically about the situation, we won't be able to, because when the amygdala is taking over, our higher order thinking is diminished. Okay, so examples of top-down techniques are cognitive reappraisal. So this is a lot of the work that I do with my clients. Like, let's take another look at how you're thinking about the thing that happened or the thing that is happening. So this is reframing, this is looking for alternative interpretations, this is challenging the beliefs and the stories that we've come to have as a result of an experience. Coaching, therapy, some what we call solution-based therapies are really great. Trauma-focused interventions. And so a lot of times top-down approaches are going to be a little bit working more with the conscious thoughts and conscious memories. So one of the techniques that I teach in Beyond Surviving is called positive opposites. So when you find your mind going into one of those negative thought loops, to just immediately interrupt and intercept that thinking in order to begin really retraining the brain and changing the neuronal pathways. Now, there's one other approach that I love here, which is called a horizontal approach. So I hope that includes like napping and being cozy and comfy in bed, because that is one of my favorite ways of healing. Oh my goodness. So this is what they say. This is happening through interhemispheric or cross-modality processing. So a focus on these approaches is, way outside of what I generally work on. But this is where we bring in things like art therapy, creativity, using music and dance and movement, these sorts of things. EMDR, which be careful with that modality. Make sure you have a really strong practitioner, because it can be very re-traumatizing in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use it. But those kinds of alternative approaches are so, so important. And I also weave those in because one of the things that we also know is the importance of play in healing. Play actually causes your brain to more rapidly change and heal. So wherever we can bring in some creativity and some play into our healing process, such a good thing. All right. So ultimately, my encouragement for you today is to do a little toolkit assessment. Start to think about like, what are the things that you've learned along the way? What are the tools that you have in your toolkit? And start to categorize them and just start to notice, do I have a lot of top down? Do I have a lot of bottom up? Do I have some horizontal tools? And see if you can start to balance those. But also, most importantly, tune in and notice like, which of these tools really seem to help me stay on track, stay healthy, stay grounded, stay empowered. You may have a really strong preference, and then that's going to kind of influence the types of support that you go out and get and the kinds of practitioners that you're going to want to work with. All right, I hope this has been helpful. As always, if I can be there as a support to you in your journey, reach out. I'm here for you. And until we meet again, take good care of you.